and welcome to the Boost Your English Fluency podcast. I'm your host for today. I'm here to guide you on this immersive journey, one that's designed to inspire you, motivate you, and most importantly, give you actionable steps toward mastering English fluency. For those tuning in for the first time, this podcast is all about unraveling the secrets of becoming fluent in English, not just from textbooks or grammar exercises, but through real, meaningful conversations, experiences, and powerful storytelling that brings the language alive. So if you're ready to go on this journey with me, let's get started. Imagine you're building a house. What's the first thing you need? A strong foundation, right? The same principle applies to English fluency. You can think of fluency as a structure that stands on three key pillars: vocabulary, pronunciation, and comprehension. Each of these is like a beam holding up the building, and without one of them, the whole thing could collapse. Let's talk about these one by one, starting with vocabulary. Vocabulary is the raw material of any language. Think about it. Every word you know is another tool you can use to express yourself. Imagine trying to describe your favorite meal, for example. Without the right words, you're left with a vague impression, unable to paint the picture. But when you know words like savory, crispy, or rich, you're able to add layers to your description, almost like adding spices to a dish. A good rule of thumb here is to learn vocabulary that's relevant to your life. Think about the 80-20 rule. 80% of your conversations will likely use 20% of the vocabulary you know. So focus on that core 20%. If you're in business, learn terms like revenue, negotiation, and strategy. If you're a student, focus on words like analyze, interpret, and evaluate. When your vocabulary is tailored to your life, every conversation becomes a practice session. Now let's move on to pronunciation. This is one area that a lot of learners struggle with. But trust me, with the right approach, you can improve significantly. Think of pronunciation as the first impression you make in any language. If vocabulary is the structure, pronunciation is the paint on the walls. It's what people see first and what often sticks with them. Here's a little story to illustrate. I once knew a learner named Maria. Maria was fantastic at reading and writing English, but she'd always hesitate in conversations. Why? Because she wasn't confident in her pronunciation. She'd feel like every word was a minefield. Would she say it wrong? Would people misunderstand her? It was holding her back. But then she started breaking down each word into sounds, focusing on one new sound a week. She'd practice the tricky ones, like the th in this or the v in very. Over time, she built a mental checklist of sounds she'd mastered. And guess what? In a few months, she was speaking confidently, even with native speakers. She told me later that it felt like unlocking a door. Once she was free from her pronunciation fears, she could fully engage in conversations. So take it from Maria. Start with small steps, focus on challenging sounds, and don't rush. Pronunciation is like sculpting. Every little effort adds up to a clearer, more confident voice. Now let's talk about one of the most effective methods for boosting fluency: learning through context. Think of language as a river. It flows naturally, moving through various twists and turns. The best way to learn is by immersing yourself in that flow. If you've ever found yourself stuck memorizing isolated words, you know it can feel a bit like picking up pebbles one by one, not seeing the bigger picture. Let me give you a concrete example. I once met a learner named Arjun who wanted to improve his business English. Instead of learning vocabulary by rote, Arjun read industry articles, watched business documentaries, and listened to interviews with entrepreneurs. He absorbed the language and context. When he came across phrases like market strategy or competitive edge, he didn't just memorize them, he saw them in action, used by real people in real situations. This approach made him fluent in a way that rote learning never could. By the time he was done, he could speak about business topics confidently because he wasn't just repeating words. He was sharing ideas. That's the power of context. Next time you want to learn something new, try finding content that shows the language in its natural setting. It could be as simple as watching a movie, reading a news article, or listening to a podcast. When you see words come alive in real situations, your brain makes stronger connections, and you're more likely to remember and use those words effectively. Let's talk about goals. Learning English without goals is like setting off on a journey without a destination. Goals give you direction, help you measure progress, and keep you motivated when things get tough. But here's where a lot of people make a mistake. They set goals like, I want to be fluent in English, which, while noble, is a bit too vague. Let's say your goal is to be able to hold a 10-minute conversation about your favorite hobby. That's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's a smart goal, and it gives you something to work toward. Now imagine you set a goal to learn 100 new vocabulary words each month. That sounds ambitious but doable, right? And by breaking it down, say 25 words each week, it becomes even more manageable. And if you have a busy week, you can adjust and learn 15 words instead. When you achieve small wins like these, you build momentum, and before you know it, you're hitting bigger milestones. And here's a tip to make goal setting even more effective. Make your goals visible. Write them down, stick them on your wall, or put them in a journal you open every day. When you can see your goals, they feel real, and you're constantly reminded of why you're putting in the effort. By setting small, actionable goals, you create a roadmap to fluency that feels achievable and rewarding. And there you have it, friends. The first steps to boosting your English fluency. Remember, it's not just about learning words or mastering grammar. Fluency is about building a connection with the language, creating confidence in your voice, and finding joy in each conversation you have. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If today's episode helped you, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and share it with anyone else you know who's working on their English skills.
I read your essay. Interesting ideas.
Thank you. Was it good?
It had potential, but there were some grammar issues.
A lot.
Quite a few, mostly verb tense mistakes.
I thought I got those right.
Common mistake. Look at this sentence. She walks to school and saw a cat.
Oh, present and past mixed.
Exactly. How would you fix it?
She walks to school and sees a cat.
That works. Another option.
She walked to school and saw a cat.
Perfect. Always keep tenses consistent.
I'll be more careful next time.
Good. There's also an awkward sentence I noticed.
Which one?
This. The boy quickly running to catch the bus, but he fall.
Oh, I see the problem.
Tell me what's wrong.
Running should be ran to match fall.
Not quite. Try again.
The boy quickly ran to catch the bus, but he fell.
Yes, keep verbs in the same tense.
I understand now.
Great. Now let's look at another sentence.
There's more.
Learning never stops. Ready?
I guess so.